Yes, so I'm Nihar and I'm a filmmaker from Mumbai. Before I start, I would want you guys to uh, take 15 seconds, close your eyes, and ask yourself one question. When was the last time that the food you ate made you remember someone? Maybe yesterday, or day before, or last week, or last month. We'll get back to this in a few minutes. So soon after getting out of design college, I found myself in the middle of the advertising industry in Bombay. And it was extremely chaotic and beautiful and glamorous, but it was just a little too fast paced for me. So I kind of got lost in that speed and I couldn't cope up. And at the same time, a lot of my fundamental ideas of making films and telling stories were formed in this industry. And I always believed that to make a good film or a good looking film, you should have massive sets or, really big budgets or a really big crew along with you. And along with all of these thoughts going on, I also had a passion for cooking for a very long time, but I hadn't realized it yet. So that pretty much sums up my life, my professional life till the lockdown. And then the lockdown happened. And on 8th of June 2020, I lost my grandmother after a prolonged illness. And this was the time when me and my mother, we decided to get together and cook some dishes which she really liked to eat as a process of going through the experience together. So we got together, we came up with a list of a few Gujarati recipes which we made in our household. And we were around at the time of the monsoon, so we cooked some monsoon specials as well. And through this process, what I realized is that because it was a lockdown, I didn't have a lot of resources. I only had a borrowed camera from a friend. I had no lights, no crew, no one to help me. Only my mother talking in front of the camera and me. And through that process, I accidentally made a series called Avre Varsad, which means come o rain in Gujarati. And it is also a very popular poem. Anyone who's Gujarati has grown up with that poem, right? And so when I made that series, what I realized is what was surprising to me was that a lot of people who are not from my context or my language or my area of residence, they were also deeply connecting with these stories, and they were sharing a range of emotions that they felt when they were, watching the series. And at that time, I realized something that maybe to make a good-looking film, I don't need a lot of money. I need a very good story. And this was when my fundamentals of filmmaking started changing in a beautiful way. And along with that came another revelation that I had been kind of observing the cooking processes and the techniques and traditions going on in my kitchen for a really long time, but I hadn't consciously given it any focus. And I thought that it's something in the background. So a little bit about me. While growing up, apart from my father, I mostly grew up with women around me. My mother, my two grandmothers, and my father's five sisters. And all of them had very different relationships with cooking, because some of them were very nurturing, some of them were very technical and methodical, but everything was expressed through different ways of cooking. While some of them were, one of them was deeply in love with her mango orchards with all her heart. And there was another aunt of mine who would use cooking as a meditative process, while there was another one who would try to fill a lonely void within her through the process of cooking. And whatever the plates of cooking were, they all kind of helped them express what they were going through in life. And at this time through the series, I realized that having a hyper-personal story is very, very important when you want to communicate something. I always used to think that being relatable is talking about things that the other 10,000 people are talking about. But the more personal I made my story, the more relatable it became. And that was a very beautiful process to see unfold in front of me on social media. So nutrition and macros, micros, food activism, these are all very important and relevant things to talk about today. At the same time, we need to see what recipes meant to us not very long ago, just maybe a couple of generations ago. Recipes were what held communities together, and they kind of, help people express their emotions through those recipes. And we are kind of losing a lot of that knowledge today. Also, there was a lot of nutritional wisdom that was passed down through these recipes, through folklores of deities and plants and animals. So it would, effortlessly just get carried forward instead of it just being a very methodical, technical thing. Because it is stories which we remember more than a technical process. So right now we are, apart from losing these small stories and nuances about filmmaking, about cooking, we are also at a place where food is being used as a tool to divide people. And I wanted to make an effort to see how I can bring happy, warm and emotional stories of food so that when people read it, they can realize the similarities amongst different cultures. And that is when I decided to self-publish a magazine called Baporyu. And Baporyu in Gujarati means an afternoon nap. And this is a magazine with stories, poems, photo essays, and recipes from around the country, where people are sharing happy and emotional stories of food and cooking and belonging at their own regions and places. For example, there was one story by a friend of mine, Mehi, where she talked about how she's been a vegetarian since birth, but then she married someone who was a passionate non-vegetarian because they fell in love in college. And she's also a photographer. So the first time she went to Mohammed Ali Road was with her husband. And she had certain ideas about diet, but when she saw the way communities were forming around food and the way she was photographing the food, it kind of made her realize that there is definitely some similarity amongst a lot of differences as well. And that's what she talks about in this article. Whereas there was another poem called Jeetka, which was written by another friend of mine, Vasudha, where she's just describing a very simple afternoon, tea time with kachoris and family members, uncles and aunts playing cards. And it kind of took me back to my mommy's house in Ahmedabad during my summer vacations. And there was yet another story called Ciao Bella, which means goodbye Bella. And this was about a cafe called La Bella. It was a hole-in-the-wall restaurant in Ahmedabad, which was a watering hole for students from across the city and also people from all walks of life. And my friend Nikunj, who's also illustrated this piece, he talks about how he made very unusual friendships and explored Goan cuisine in the middle of the old city of Ahmedabad, which was very surprising for a lot of college students. So through my work, my effort has been to capture the poetic, aesthetic, and the more emotional side of Indian cooking. And a lot of the food systems in the subcontinent, not just India, they all revolve around seasons. And this kind of shape the rituals that come into place, the customs, our fasting cycles, our celebrations, and sometimes even what we eat during times of ailments or even during times of loss. So if you go back into your kitchen or your family's kitchen or your village kitchen and think about it, this is probably the oldest living heritage site in front of you right now, hiding in plain sight. Because it is formed by centuries of invasions and colonization and global trade, and most importantly, the inventions of the native communities and the resilience of these communities who carried these dishes forward through experiments and failures. So what I realized is that while I was trying to form an idea of who I am as a storyteller or a filmmaker, my kitchen was silently waiting for me to take notice. And when I started noticing things in the kitchen, it kind of changed my world and my perspective in a very beautiful way. In short, what I was chasing elsewhere was right around me, and I just had to turn the other way and look at it. Another thing is that when you are sharing a story through food with someone, it might be difficult for someone to remember a long list of spices or the technical name of a dish. But what people remember is a story of the hands that made it, the table it was shared on, and the memories associated along with it. So stories are a very powerful way to pass on knowledge about food with people around you. But today we are in a very chaotic world. Most of us don't live in cities we were born in, and the food culture is highly homogenized because of delivery apps and people not having time to cook for themselves, or just not having enough alone time for yourself. So in this situation, how do we identify what is our food? How do we describe ourselves through food? And how do we even start the process of finding out what does our traditional food mean to us? These are all relevant questions to ask. So it is very important, and more importantly, it is a fun process to build your own mini food library wherever you are. And you can, by building this library, it can come in handy at times of celebration, or when you are away from home but missing home and you want to cook the food, or if just like a couple of friends are over and you want to make something for them from your kitchen. This mini food library would be very, very handy. And there are some simple tips from my side. You can cook with elders if they are around you, and you can start creating a journal or a family recipe notebook. You can take photos of people cooking the food. If you don't like to cook, maybe document or take voice notes of people. Or you can, when you're sitting around a big table and people are sharing their foods, you can ask them questions about the techniques or where it came from, or if there are any stories related to it, and maybe try cooking once a week. What is very interesting about this pattern of documentation is that a lot of Indian food is based on sounds and words which describe those sounds and smells which follow that. For example, there is a word called harmas, which means the fresh leafy smell of any herb when it is just sauteed in the gas, in oil on the gas. And this is something that my mom showed me what it was, and when I smelled it, I knew what it was, and I couldn't have known what it means if I read it in a recipe book. Because a book would just tell you just 30 seconds after putting the herbs in, you put the milk or whatever. But that doesn't explain it. Or for example, my uncle once showed me how to know that a specific rice variety is cooked by pinching it and seeing how it spreads on your finger. This is not something that you will learn from a book. So it is very important to document these things. Otherwise, we are at a situation where we kind of lose all these smaller nuances of cooking. And most importantly, experiment. And experimenting means you are definitely going to fail a lot of times. When my grandmother used to cook poha for me, I remember one day she kind of ended up burning the poha a little bit. But that burnt dark brown crust of poha has become the most favorite part for me now. And I try to recreate it as much as I can whenever I cook poha now. And one friend of mine, Ashwin, the way he experimented is, he really liked his mother's curd rice a lot. But at the same time, he was also borderline addicted to this masala at a anda bhurji stall outside his college. So what he did is, two completely different traditions, two different dishes, but he got the masala from the anda bhurji into the curd rice and made something of his own. Even though it is an inventive dish, it is still rooted in Indian tradition. And now, on most Sundays, he cooks it for his wife and his son. And it has become a new living tradition in his house. So whenever you get the chance to do this, if people are over, or you are sitting alone and you have some time, and if you have an interest, maybe ditch the delivery app and go into your mini food library and try and cook something for yourself. You might fail, you will definitely fail, but you will also come up with beautiful accidents out of that. So apart from being nutrition, which is very important for our body, food is also your history and it is also your identity. And we are at the verge of losing a lot of these important things. If the previous generation is not alive anymore and we haven't documented any of these things, even if it is like a couple of recipes or a couple of photos or voice notes or anything that you think is worthy of documentation, pass it around, pass it with your friends, post, journal about it, and pass it down to your next generation, and they will definitely thank you. Because a seemingly simple plate of bombil fry or a bowl of rasam is as much a legacy as a big old Indian traditional thali. So for me, this process started with documenting recipes in Avre Varsad, the series. For you, it might start with a simple plate of food from your family table. And before I end, I would like you all to see a short trailer of the series which I made in the lockdown with my mother.
વરસાદ આવે ને એટલે અમે ઘરમાં પાણી ભરીએ રૂમમાં અને પછી એમાં છપછપિયા કરીએ, આખું ઘર પાણીથી ભરી દઈએ પાલડી ગામમાં. હવે પપ્પા બી એમાં નાહીએ, અમે બી નાહીએ, પછી આ ગીત ગાય. પપ્પા ગાય, હું સાંભળું. આવરે વરસાદ, ઢેબરીઓ પરસાદ, ઊની ઊની રોટલી ને કારેલાનું શાક. જ્યારે વરસાદ શરૂ થાય એટલે મને તો ટેવ છે ભાખરી કરતી હોય ને મસ્ત મોણવાળી, ત્યારે જો વરસાદ પડતો મારથી આ પોઈમ ગવાઈ જાય. મારા મગજમાં હંમેશા રહેતું હતું, જ્યારે બી હું લાડવા બનાવું, કોઈને મોકલું ત્યારે મને હંમેશા રહેતું હતું કે અમે બધા જ્યારે નહીં હોય તો નેક્સ્ટ જનરેશન લાડવા શું કરશે, નહીં ખાય.